What is happening out there, rotoscouts baseball fans? Any of you guys left? Anybody left for baseball? Ryan S. says, hey, where's this NFL channel? Same channel as far as YouTube goes, bud. Just one YouTube channel. NFL channel in Discord should be easy to find. It's the one that says NFL or football or whatever I used for it. There's only a couple channels there, so it's not going to be totally crazy to find that if you're in our Discord. But yeah, the NFL show will be coming up 6 p.m. tonight. Showdown Slate breakdown. Obviously, we've been a little bit behind week one here. We haven't gotten to do videos for the different positions, the game by games. We're going to cram all of that into the next 2 days, and then we'll be a lot better with a good schedule next week. My name's Terry McBride. The website is Rotoscouts, and I have officially taken on too much today. All the procrastinating today, definitely getting to catch up to me a little bit. Spent most of the morning getting my dashboard together. I realized like halfway through the morning I didn't actually have something to like display on the football show later on. So I was trying to put together a key stats board and just get all my notes together. Still very much baseball brained. So you guys will have to bear with me as I slog through some of the football later. But fortunately, we're here to talk baseball. We do have a weird little 6-gamer tonight. So limited prize pools, limited contest sizes across sites. Full disclosure, I'm not going to be playing. I'm just going to jump off of here, get some lineups in order, do the NFL show, then knock out some NFL lineups. Much bigger prize pools for the NFL Showdown single game contest tonight. So I think that's where we're making our scene today. But obviously there's a ton to talk about for MLB. I'm going to try and get through this one kind of in a hurry. I do need to grab some time back, so not going to shortchange anything, but we definitely need to talk fast. And we definitely need to keep a little bit of momentum going. Let me grab the lineups. Looks like we've got a lot of lineups in, which is a plus. We do have a 6:40 start time today for anybody that wasn't aware of that. Obviously, they want to get out of the way as quickly as possible before football. But with the 2-hour games, they're kind of going to be able to manage that this year. So that's good for baseball, I think. But let me just grab some lineups while I say hi. Hello to everybody in the chat. I'll go name you guys individually in a moment. Let me just put these lineups in real quick. Going to be boring air for just a sec. Just bear with me. And we will get into this one. It's an interesting pitching slate. I do think there are some compelling pitching options on this one. Deep enough board for a 6-gamer that it's kind of limiting power a little bit. We do have a major power spot with the Braves facing the ghost of Adam Wainwright. That one's obviously primed to go off like crazy. Braves are up to a 7-ish run total. A Coors Field-esque total for the Braves today. So just some monster numbers for them. But otherwise, there weren't really crazy upside offensive spots. It was not a pitching-leaning slate because nobody's really crashing through the top of the pitching model. But it seemed less on the hitting side. It seemed like it was a more limited hitting slate as I was looking at things earlier today. A couple of lineups left to put in. Cards, the Braves. All right, and we don't have the lineups for the last 2 games just yet. All right, let's get back into this. So let's see who's here. We got Lone Wolf is here. Detroit stack for Lone Wolf. Could be Travis says what's up. What's up, Trav? Sir Spencer the King. Thanks for the show, even though you're not playing. No worries, man. That's the fun of it. Steven Leibowitz is here. Baseball season still. Po DGen Stoner says over 6 o'clock bettors are nervous. Yeah, they better be. We're not going till 6. Hopefully we don't go too much past 4:30. I would love to have an hour and a half to just round off the edges on the what I'm going to show for NFL. It's also absurdly hot in here for reasons. It's like 92 degrees on September 7th in Jersey. Dripping down my face. Lone Wolf's here. Lone Wolf's been building the bankroll up late in the MLB season, getting ready for NFL. I like that. Handful of people here for the early start. The others will catch up with us later on. It is a limited slate today, so I'm just going to kind of dive in. First game up, Mariners and the Rays. Well, we'll talk before we go game by game. Let me do this right. Runs board. Oh, you know what? I got to update that one. I guessed at that one this morning. It wasn't posted this morning. Let me grab it. Was I correct? How good was I? 8.5 run total. I got that right. I was wrong on who was favored, though. So it's mine. This isn't going to change much. I don't think it changed anything. Minor adjustment at the bottom of the board. We'll leave all the other ones where they were. I don't want to bore you guys with me fixing run totals. So obviously the Braves, that's a massive spot like I was referring to. That one is 10.5 run total now. I know I just said that I wasn't going to adjust them, but that does push the Braves up, and they're a minus 315 favorite, so it's approaching a 7-run total for the Atlanta Braves. We know there's a ton of power in that game. I know I'm clicking all over the place here, guys. It's been a long day already, just sitting here in Excel. Wait till we're on the one where I can't remember what's in what column in a little while. It's going to be fun. So a lot of four-ish run totals. This is kind of what I was referring to as far as the low totals on the board. We've got the massive total for the Braves and then no other team over 5 and a bunch of low 2s and a bunch of 3s. So it's a pretty limited slate as far as offense goes. Only the 10.5 total there and a bunch of 8s to work with. Doesn't look like anything raised up over 9. So really limited. Getting over to the pitching board. Castillo in this game kind of dominating up at the top. And I think justifiably so, but we obviously know he's been a little bit rocky in spots this season. So I don't think there's totally safe pitching options really in any corner of this one. That said, Castillo, a really proven starter over time in my mind, and somebody that the model obviously loves today. Last time out, kind of ugly for him. 5 innings, 5 earned runs, 2 home runs. Starts before that, had one clunky one at the middle of August on the 16th, but was otherwise okay through August. The other one, I thought that was a late July. The August 4th start, he gave up 7 runs. But there's a lot of quality mixed in. It's just kind of a more up and down season, I think, than we're used to seeing from Luis Castillo. But I think justifiably at the top of the board. High price on both sites. I like the spot for Max Fried on both sites. 9.6 on DK. You're getting a little bit of a discount for a pitcher of Fried's talent. Tough lineup on the other side with the Cards, but definitely a pitcher capable of limiting output. Carlos Rodon, there's nothing I can do to get him out of that spot. That's with me putting a thumb on the projections. Obviously the model doesn't really know what to make of this limited version of Carlos Rodon right now. I've tried to get into the back end and tinker with it, but I don't want to mess with it too much because I do still think he's got reasonable upside in a start like this going up against the really limited Detroit Tigers. Eduardo Rodriguez on the other side, reasonable projection there, totally viable, and some upside probably against the Yankees, with the Yanks surging a little bit with the kids in the lineup now. And Erod, we know, is kind of an up-and-down roller coaster of a starter. Pepio against Miami, interesting spot there. I do think he's a talented kid. They're kind of an interesting lineup on the other side. That's kind of a both-sided situation. I like Griff Canning against Cleveland. He doesn't project through the roof, but he really never does. He's Griff Canning. Cleveland's a low strikeout bunch overall, but I like his upside there. They're, even with some improvements later in the season, they're still a pretty limited bunch for run creation. I like Braxton Garrett in a vacuum, but on this slate going up against the Dodgers, I'm not sure we really need to mess with it. He's correctly priced for the opportunity, and he's certainly got enough talent, but it's the Dodgers. It's not the greatest spot in the world. Zach Littell, very, very cheap against the high strikeout Mariners is an interesting spot. Javier Assad, don't really want to tangle with the Diamondbacks with a pitcher like that. And then the bottom of the board is just kind of nose across the board for me. So an interesting one to get into. Like I said, a lot of at least reasonable pitching with no, like, you have to lock this guy. And obviously even those guys like Spencer Strider yesterday, not to open old wounds for anybody out there. I didn't play yesterday. I was at the U.S. Open, which was great, by the way. Oh, man, not to get off on a tangent already, but we hit the day so perfectly at the U.S. Open yesterday. It was fantastic. One of the first matches in the secondary arena went like 3 hours plus while we were watching the main matches in the Arthur Ashe arena. So then when we went out, we ended up staying till about, I think we left at like 9 o'clock. We caught the 9:20 something train out of there. So it was awesome. We got to see a super big day of tennis. It was really fun. It's a great event. If you guys have never been. I know it's, obviously limited in the New York area, but just big tennis, going to see tennis is an interesting event because you can be so close to such high level action. It's really interesting, really fun. Anyway, let's get into this one. We do not have a ton of time. So Castillo as a starting point going up against the Rays. 26.8% strikeout rate for Castillo. He doesn't really walk too many. He's given up the premium contact this year. This has been kind of the issue. 9.9% barrels, 42.7% hard hits, 90 miles an hour of exit velo, and a 3.67% home run rate. Everything else is basically in line. He's got a 15% swinging strike rate. That's dominant. A 1.03 whip. helped by the walk rate, obviously, but not like he gives up a ton of hits. Just some incidental mistakes, contact that have burnt him, but it's burnt him a number of times. So I have to book it as not entirely safe, especially against a fairly productive team like the Rays. But it's not like he's given up much in terms of the home run model. So it's kind of in between, I think, in terms of how the model is seeing the Rays side of this one. Definitely major upside for Luis Castillo overall. 26.8% strikeouts is one of the higher marks, if not the highest overall on the slate. And we've seen him perform to much higher levels than that. There are a fair amount of strikeouts in this confirmed Rays lineup, 25.1%. That's including Isaac Paredes, who's at 17, and Yandy Diaz, who's at 16.4. So a lot of their key bats and a lot of their power bats, if you take those two guys out, which is unfair to the lineup as a whole, but 27.4% for everybody else in the lineup. So it goes up by 2 points. So I think there's definitely an opportunity for Castillo to book a very strong start here. Even if he doesn't have a perfect day, even if he goes out, gives up a couple of runs, he's still got upside for strikeouts. He's still got upside on this slate to be a dominant starter, to post the highest score. In that instance, though, you do have to make up ground by, you have to hope that some of the value guys fall short of being within that gap for the salary difference. Rays on the other side, I do think it's a little bit both-sided given all the premium contact that Castillo's given up this year, given that he's been at least a little bit targetable, but it doesn't make him one of the premium stacks of the day, I don't think, by any means. Let me open up the board and see where they stacked out. Not a deep day, so they'll be fairly highly ranked. That's not the right file. I got too many files now, too. I got to start getting organized. Rays were 9th overall by collective fantasy point projections, 9th by DK value, 11th overall by home run ranking. So again, not much of the issues with Castillo in his few bad spots this year, few rough patches this year have really come through in the model. So I don't love the Rays stack, but they're productive enough. 5,300, 3,700 is a fair price for Yandy Diaz, as good as he's been. 18 home runs, a 400 on base percentage that he pushed back up over the last couple of weeks. 154 WRC plus, doesn't strike out, does walk a lot. Everybody in this lineup has at least a decent walk rate on the year, despite the strikeouts. So it's a tough matchup for pitchers. Not that Castillo's got a walk problem, but it is a tough matchup. They're one of the more difficult lineups to get through cleanly. Brandon Lau, tons and tons of power. 11.1% barrels, 47% hard hits. The highest mark on the team for home run upside. Big time lefty bat at second base, 4,400, 3,300 too. 19 home runs and 386 this year at 213 ISO, 118 WRC plus. That's a prime player. I like that spot quite a bit. If you're going to Rays, he'd be one of my top priorities. Randy Rosarena, another top priority. Excellent contact rates, 21 homers, 21 steals. Creating runs 26% better than average. Premium outfield option. He's fairly priced, 54.37. You're not getting him at a discount for the tough matchup, but definitely a high priority option in that stack. Josh Lowe, still a pretty solid contact profile, 18 homers, 28 steals. A lot of that came early, but he's maintained a lot of quality in the triple slash. The run creation, the ISO is still over 200. So I like the spot for Josh Lowe for medium shares. Isaac Paredes, 28 home runs and 489 plate appearances at 246 ISO. Just a monster season from him power-wise. Third base only on DK, 4,500. Perfectly playable at the position. No issues there. He's more valuable probably on FanDuel because he's got triple position eligibility, including second base for the 3,200. You do have a decision point between him and Brandon Lau at second base. Also Jonathan Aranda in this lineup, and also Taylor Walls with second base eligibility in this lineup. That highlights one potential detriment because you can, you do have the util spot obviously to use, but you don't necessarily want to book like a Jonathan Aranda and Taylor Walls combination with a second baseman and a util. But this team's got a ton of flexibility on the FanDuel slate. We've got, 4 guys with multi-position, 2 guys with triple position who are all viable. Taylor Walls, 216, 317, 360 on the year and 94 WRC plus. Okay for counting stats though, 7 homers, 21 steals, and 287 plate appearances. Not too bad. Jonathan Aranda, 2,400, 2,000. First baseman on DK, second baseman on FanDuel. That's fun. 1 home run, a 108 WRC plus in his 47. Bethancourt gets involved from time to time at the bottom of the lineup. 9 home runs on the season. Martin Maldonado, he's not. Anybody missed? Luke Raley, 37.29 is a good price for Luke Raley hiding in the middle of this lineup. Missed him. The lefty. Another power bat. 13.4% barrels, 46.1% hard hits for Raley, 18 home runs, 14 steals, 242 ISO, 128 WRC plus. I like the spot for Raley there as well. On the Rays side, Zach Littell make his 11th start of the season. 19.3% strikeouts, but only 3% walks. 4.16 xFIP, but a 4.69 ERA. Gives up a pretty high amount of premium contact, pretty decent amount of power. The upside's there for additional strikeouts beyond what he normally gets. That's what's supporting a little bit of a higher projection for him. Given where he projects, given the potential with a lot of strikeouts in that Mariners lineup, I do like the opportunity for Zach Littell here at 6,200, 6,300. I think he's a viable dart throw, if nothing else. Pretty good points per dollar value numbers. He's got a 9.6% swinging strike rate, which is okay, not great, but okay, but doesn't throw enough strikes overall with a 25.6% CSW, despite only walking 3%. There's just a lot of contact involved with this pitcher. So I think it's okay. I don't love it. I prefer the Seattle side if I'm going to bats in this one. Fifth overall by fantasy point projections, fourth by FanDuel value, eighth by DK point per dollar, and second by home run upside with all the contact. So we've got a few guys here. I made Mike Ford just for the hell of it the pick of the day for the home run upside. Obviously, we like the home run upside for Julio Rodriguez. Cal Raleigh a little bit better because they hit at the top of the lineup. They're better overall players. They're going to see more plate appearances. But we've got Ford. We've got those two guys. We've got Teoscar Hernandez just below the magic number. We've got Eugenio Suarez just below the magic number. So a lot of power shining through as usual in the Mariners lineup. Multiple guys with 25 plus home runs. A lot of guys with good double-digit home run totals. Some decent ISOs. Lower ISOs on the average than you would expect for some of these guys. Like Eugenio Suarez is having a weird year. 18 home runs for a guy who hit 31 each of the last 2 years, down to a 150 ISO, 100 WRC plus. Still makes very good premium contact. Strikes out way too much. Just the ISO last year for him was in the 220s, 223. Year before was 230, 230. So Suarez not delivering as much regular power, but still does have all the power that he ever did, I think. 18 homers, it's debatable whether the power's starting to slip later in his career, but I think he's a primed option, 4,300, 2,900. He's priced for the player he is, not the player he was. Perfectly fine to go to. JP Crawford at the top gets on base at a great clip. Very good shortstop option for 33, 47, 389 on base, creating runs 36% better than average. Nice player to go to start a Seattle stack. Prime position too. Shortstop eligible. 47, 33 is a fair price to pay. Julio, superstar, 11.6% barrels, 52.3% hard hits, 27 home runs, 36 stolen bases, 30% better than average for run creation. Cal Raleigh and all this premium contact. Teoscar, all this premium contact. In a small sample, Dominic Canzone, fitting right in with the team theme. Premium contact, 11.3% barrels, 42.6% hard hits, 5 homers, 187 ISO, and 147 plate appearances. Low average, low on base percentage. Fits in with the team theme, but doesn't strike out that much so far. 16.3% strikeouts, also doesn't walk that much. So that's where the low on base comes from. 9% worse than average creating runs. I'll take the power. I'm fine with going to that for cheap prices in the Seattle outfield. Nice little price differentiator. Ty France is a mix-in. Josh Rojas is a mix-in. Mike Ford, not as good as he's been this year overall, but he's been this good this year, and he's hitting for a little bit of power. It's projecting well, 20% barrels, 45.8% hard hits in his 212 plate appearances. A playable part. Luis Castillo, Mariners bats, Rays bats, Zach Littell value darts, but I do think the Littell play is there. Actually, I don't even think it's a dart. I think Zach Littell value is legitimately on the board. Trey's in the chat. Trey says, I swear every year we get older goes by faster, buddy. That is only going to increase as you get older and older. That's well, I don't know if you're older than me or not, but in my experience, it definitely gets faster and faster. It's pretty wild. I was thinking about that just the other day with like summer ending and everything. Like back in the day, summer used to be the same length. You'd be out of school for 6-8 weeks, whatever it was for summer vacation. But back then it seemed like forever, right? Like you'd go to camp, you'd do this, you'd be in 6 different activities through the summer. You're playing Little League. Every single day is like, it feels like 10 times as long as days are these days. It's weird. It's very weird. But it seems to be a universal experience. Everybody that I talk to, all my friends, and you see things around like why does life get faster as you get older and shit like that. So yeah, it seems to be a very real phenomenon. Yeah, exactly, Trey. Summer vacation felt like a year off. 100%. Felt the same length as a school year most of the time. It's totally wild. Mamba was courtside for LeBron and Melo in high school at the Palestra and DeJuan Wagner's 100-point game. Damn, that's pretty fun. Let's keep this thing rolling. Dodgers, Ryan Pepio on the hill. Pepio, 1 start, 14 innings, 26.4%. Strikeouts, a 1.29 ERA, 3.66 xFIP. Let me pull it up here. Grab the minor league stats and everything that he's got going for him this year. AAA this year, 6 starts, 22 2/3 innings, a strong strikeout rate at 28%. A 4.62 xFIP under a 3.97 ERA. Wasn't really pitching deep, just kind of getting back into form. He got injured in spring training or thereabouts. I forget whether he initially broke camp with the team. But a kid that was expected to be in the rotation this year pretty much full time and fell short due to injury. High-end prospect. Very, very good changeup, a plus changeup that was at one point regarded as the best overall changeup in the minor leagues. He only cost 85.89. He is a good strikeout option. The Marlins, not a very high strikeout lineup. Some of that average is obviously helped by the 5.7% strikeout rate, which is ludicrous for Luis Arraez at the top of the lineup. He's obviously going to be in the lineup today. But if we don't include him, we get a 22.3% strikeout rate. We're already on our way if we take out Xavier Edwards in his 32 plate appearances. So now we're dealing with the guys who are, the reliable run creators, not the on-base and average guy who never strikes out. And we're taking out the small sample. Now we're up to 23.7% for this starting lineup. Nick Fortes helping that out a little bit from the bottom at 18.4. When we're talking about the bottom, the ninth hitter who's only going to get up twice, it is another limiting effect on that. So their key hitters through the middle of the lineup, these guys, 25.3. I think there's a reasonable amount of strikeouts on the board here. You also have no Jorge Soler in the lineup, so that's taking away their most fearsome power hitter. Still two guys in the lineup projected over the magic number for power, so not going to say that he's going to completely go out here and shut this team down by any means. Jake Berger at 13.4. That's a significant home run mark. 31 on the year, 284 ISO, 121 WRC+. Plus. For 4,400, 3,200, Jake Berger's got a lot of power to offer, if nothing else. Josh Bell at 4,000, 2,800, 20 home runs on the season, 177 ISO, 105 WRC+. Plus. Kind of pulled his overall line together. Still not a great season, but really pulled things together after the trade out of Cleveland. 10.3% barrels, 41.3% hard hits. Only cost 4,000, 2,800. I like that price. Jazz Chisholm is a star. 16 home runs, 19 stolen bases. He's been surging of late. 302 plate appearances on the year. 108 WRC plus with a 214 ISO. Makes tremendous contact. 12.4% barrels, 41.8% hard hits. Pretty fantastic option in the middle of the lineup. And then Brian De La Cruz, Jesus Sanchez. I think those are playable parts with a little bit of power. Both of those guys well above 40% hard hits. Very good barrel rate for Jesus Sanchez from the left side in 332 plate appearances. He's turned it into 12 home runs, a 207 ISO, 123 WRC plus. Injury shortened campaign for him, but a nice little year overall. In like half a season, this is a pretty darn good year for a young outfielder. Brian De La Cruz, nice season. It's come down in the triple slash a lot. Still does have 18 home runs. Below average now for run creation at 96 on the season. He's definitely backslid a little bit in recent weeks. Still making good contact though. 3,800, 2,800. He's a good option to put in the middle of the lineup in Marlin stacks. Just help you average it down. I don't think he's a one-off. If you're looking for one-offs, you're looking at Jazz, you're looking at Jake Berger, you're looking at Jesus Sanchez. If you're building one Marlin stack, I'm probably just going to opt for like the easy guys, like 1, 2, 3, 4, and then decide between Josh Bell and Brian De La Cruz. It's probably my top priority bats are these four guys. Xavier Edwards, Joey Wendell, Nick Fortes, much lower priorities at the bottom. Edwards, 355, 419, 111 WRC plus in his 32 plate appearances, one stolen base so far. Has effectively been getting himself involved, 2,700, 2,000 across sites. Second in outfield on DK, second base on FanDuel. A playable part at worst, dead minimum price. There's value in that alone. Wendell, 59 WRC plus and 288, 50 WRC plus for Fortes and 282. Not very good. Braxton Garrett, like I said, going up against the Dodgers, I just don't love it. Dodgers, with this version of the lineup, there's a lot of righty power. Chris Taylor, for as limited as he is overall, 3,200, 2,600, triple position eligible on the FanDuel slate. 14 home runs on the year. Most of them come against left-handed pitching. A 201 ISO, 104 WRC plus overall. An effective playable part for power upside, for run creation upside, if nothing else. He does strike out a lot, but he also draws a pretty good amount of walks. There are, even for a low walk rate guy like Braxton Garrett, there are just some aggressively high walk rates in this lineup and some aggressively low strikeout rates. So that doesn't combine great. Even with his 23.5% strikeouts, little above average, 3.8% walk rate, well below average, I just don't love the spot. There's just too much contact going on. There's too many good hitters, good power hitters. It's an elite Dodgers lineup. So for me, like I said at the top of the show, the price is correct for this opportunity. So 8,281, I don't think he's off the table. He projects out fine for those prices. It's just in a lot of other matchups, Braxton Garrett would probably be pulling a little bit better of a projection, and he would look amazing if he was at these prices. So overall, it's got a limiting impact. It's probably not going to succeed for your money. if I'm throwing darts, I'd rather not do it against the Dodgers. And I do think that Garrett, in this situation is more dart than he is sound play at the correct price, if you get me. A lot of threat from the Dodgers is the issue. 4 runs and it will ruin his night. And he's not a pitcher who works deep into games either. 140 innings in 26 starts. Only a handful as he completed the 6th inning and rarely pitches into the 7th. Mookie Betts at the top of the lineup, very limited strikeouts, aggressively high walk rate, MVP contender, creating runs 73% better than average, followed by a guy creating runs 65% better than average. One of them strikes out 15.7% of the time, the other strikes out 17% of the time. Pat rating catcher behind him, 16.1% strikeout rate, 11.7% walks, 181 ISO, 17 homers for Will Smith. Ahmed Rosario, not the greatest fit for the cleanup spot, really. I'd probably move even lefty-lefty Max Muncy into that spot. Lefty-lefty doesn't really bother Max, especially a lefty like this. I don't really worry about it. Garrett, well, I shouldn't say a lefty like this. Garrett's got strikeout acumen, so he could get Max in this situation, lefty-lefty. But I'm not sweating it that much. You could also move Chris Taylor into that spot for a little bit of power. Rosario's just been frustratingly inconsistent for a kid that I do think has talent under the surface. 18.1% strikeout rate is very good, but 3.6% barrels is very bad. 39.8% hard hits, only 6 homers, 13 steals. We were expecting at least approaching a 2020 season, if not like 15-15 kind of a season from Ahmed Rosario, and it's just been really limited this year. 119 ISO, still 13% worse than average creating runs, even since coming over from Cleveland. Not a great option. Muncy, 16.2%, barrels 48.2%, hard hits on the season. Obviously, tons and tons of power. Let me see what his numbers are, lefty-lefty right now. Lefty-lefty from Muncy. Yeah, so only 21.1% strikeout rate and a 250 ISO still, but only creating runs at an 81 WRC plus because he's slashing 142, 268, 392. Draws more walks against righties, 16.3%. Still a good walk rate versus lefties, 12%. Obviously more limited plate appearances, 142 plate appearances, but 10 of his 32 home runs have come against same-handed pitching. So I don't really sweat the lefty-lefty in this spot. I just have a healthy enough respect for Braxton Garrett that it's not going to be like, this is a mistake. Like, Muncy's too low priced or whatever. Well, he is too low priced overall anyway. 49 on DK is a bargain. 36 on FanDuel, correctly priced. Enrique Hernandez, Miguel Rojas, Austin Barnes. Apologies for just kind of breezing past these guys. They're just kind of mix-ins for price at best. You do get positional flex on Enrique Hernandez, 2 positions on DK, 3 on FanDuel. That's helpful. Miguel Rojas has been at a 60 WRC plus. Hernandez is 66, and Austin Barnes in 165 plate appearances. Way below Mendoza line, 28 WRC plus, 1 home run. Not a lot to love at the bottom of the lineup, but none of these guys are so bad that it's like, oh, that's really going to help Braxton Garrett. Any one of these guys is capable enough of putting the ball in play. They're just, typical bottom of the lineup bad, lousy-ish options. But it's not like a bump over the average team. So that was it. I would say, how did I rank out? Well, since the Dodgers were the top projected team of the day on the board, I guess I buried that. On the board, Dodgers, number 1 by projections, but number 6 by home run opportunity. 2nd by FanDuel point per dollar. 3rd by DK point per dollar. So we'll put the Dodgers on top. I think that's fair. Dodgers up top, followed by Pepio, then Marlins bats, then Braxton Garrett. Small shares of the pitchers, though, I think. Third game up, Yanks-Tigers. Carlos Rodon. I referred to it at the top of the show. I have no idea what to do with this one. I cannot make it go any lower without just saying like, he's going to pitch 2 innings and lying to the model, which I don't really want to do because I do think he has reasonable upside if he finds his form and pitches 6 innings against this Tigers team. So I don't necessarily disagree with the projection for the Carlos Rodon that I know. Even for the Carlos Rodon that we've seen through most of this season, it's not that far off. He looked like he was maybe going to pull himself together in that start against the Rays on, August 27th. 7 strikeouts, 2 earned runs, but came out after 4 2/3, 21 total batters faced, 2 earned runs on a home run, 2 walks. Game after that against Houston, kind of forgivable. Only 2 runs, 5 innings pitched, which is good. 4 strikeouts, only 1 walk. Decent output, 3 hits, 1 home run. Okay-ish output. The start before the Tampa start was against Washington. He went 6 in that one. He didn't give us a great start because he gave up an earned run on a home run and 6 hits, but only struck out 1. So we didn't get the strikeout upside. That said, Washington, the best team in baseball at not striking out against lefties. And the Astros are the second best team in baseball at not striking out against lefties. The start in between, when he got the Rays, he found 7 strikeouts in 4 2/3. Against the Tigers, if we get that guy, I think there's potential here. So I didn't want to limit it too much. I'm obviously uncomfortable with it. Hopefully that's coming through. If we're looking at the active roster this year, the Tigers are toward the bottom. Tigers active roster against lefties, 98 WRC plus. So they climbed a little bit recently. A lot of that probably to do with some Spencer Torkelson output. Kerry Carpenter's output, obviously, overall is helping their numbers. 20.6% strikeouts overall. 98 WRC plus is still 2 points below average. It ranks 21st in baseball, but it's improved. 163 ISO in the split. Not a ton of strikeouts lefty-lefty, oddly. That's for the active roster, though. With the guys that are in the lineup, I mean, we're looking at Andre Lipschitz here with only 12 plate appearances. That's kind of unfair. But in that, 41.7% overall strikeouts. Carpenter, 24% strikeouts overall. Against lefties, what does Carp do? Against lefties, Carp is at a 18% strikeout rate. Only 55 plate appearances, though. 2 of his homers. A 122 WRC plus. So like I said, that's where some of the WRC plus is coming from. Torkelson on the season, a 110 WRC plus against lefties, only striking out 18.8% of the time, walking 11.6% of the time. 9 of Torkelson's home runs have come in 138 plate appearances against lefties this year. So I kind of like the spot for Spencer Torkelson to drive the ball. 9 of his 25 home runs in only whatever 100 and change plate appearances. Overall, 25 on the year, 208 ISO, 106 WRC plus, major source of premium contact. Still only 4,700, 3,300. He's just really discounted at first base. Not the greatest matchup in the world for him. He does strike out a little bit, but again, lower against lefties on the season. Andy Ibanez, Jake Rogers. Rogers has a nice mark in the home run model at 8.68. Very good bat for premium contact. 308 plate appearances, 16 home runs, a 213 ISO. Even with that, 13% worse than average creating runs because he's a 206, 277, 419 hitter on the whole. 32.8% strikeouts. Obviously a fairly flawed option there. Against lefties, 108 WRC plus, a monster 313 ISO, and 7 of those home runs in only 92 plate appearances. So definitely a big option for power against lefty pitching. 9 of the 16 home runs in a third of the plate appearances, basically. Less than a third. Pretty good. 2,825, where you need catchers especially. It's an interesting option. Miguel Cabrera is getting a lot of productivity this year, or was anyway. Against lefties, I mean. Not down to 97 WRC plus. He lost it. He was creating runs a lot better earlier in the year against lefties. He's come down a little bit. Down to 261, 358, 333 overall. Still gets on base at a good clip against lefties. 12.3% walk rate. Obviously, we're not dealing with any kind of power from Cabrera. None of his home runs this year. I think what does he have? I'm obviously jumping around between sources here. 3 home runs on the season, all against righties. Kerry Carpenter, premium bat. Excellent contact, 20 home runs and only 363 plate appearances overall. Javi Baez, lost season for him. The career might be lost at this point. Nevin, Lipschitz. Lipschitz has got a home run and a 250 ISO in his 12 plate appearances. We're very, very proud of him. 2,700 first base, third base. Dead minimum third base only on FanDuel. A mix-in option at worst. Yanks side of things going up against Erod. 24.4% strikeout rate is good. A 3.11 ERA, a 3.86 xFIP. Only allowing a 2.18% home run rate. Not that much premium contact this season. Pretty good strikeout rate for Erod. 6.5% walk rate is pretty good. He's just difficult to trust on the whole. He was, for a long time, one of the unluckiest pitchers in the game. Just always got BABIP to death and was on some pretty lousy teams defensively that didn't help him out. Last handful of starts, usual Erod output. 2 of them good, 2 of them bad. Going back to the 13th at Boston, gave up 6 earned, struck out 8 in 5 innings. On the 20th, gave up 1 earned, struck out 6 at Cleveland. 6 strikeouts against Cleveland. They needed 6 2/3 to do it, but 6 strikeouts is okay in that game, and he only allowed 1 earned. Not that many hits or contact. Next game up, he allowed 4 earned in only 4 2/3 against Houston. 1 strikeout, 4 walks. That was an ugly game. A lot of the times when he gets burnt, it's because of some inefficiency. He puts a few too many guys on base via the walks, which, again, is not a high walk rate overall for the season, but some of them have come in blips. So when he gets those statistical blips for walks and he's not striking out as many, he ends up giving up some runs. 6 2/3 last time out at Chicago, struck out 7, walked 2, but only 1 earned run, 6 hits, not bad. So it's just a little bit of a roller coaster, but overall on the whole this season, he's been pretty good. Yankees, flawed team overall, but improved by the arrival of the kids, no doubt about that. This version of the active roster in a limited sample of plate appearances. We're talking about a league low 747 plate appearances here. League high is basically double that. Baltimore at 1523. The 15th ranked team is Kansas City at 1,073 plate appearances. So take it for what it's worth. But this version of the active roster, a 108 WRC plus, floated a little bit by the kids against left-handed pitching. 231, 315, 444 collectively, but a 213 ISO. 24.6% strikeouts, but 10.2% walks. 37 home runs and only 747 plate appearances is most likely the highest home run rate. I don't have it all calculated out, but one of the higher home run rates against lefties, let's put it that way. DJ off the top of the lineup, DJ LeMahieu, 3,700 is very cheap. He's a first baseman on FanDuel, or a DK, but there's no positional conflict in the Yankees lineup, so we're not really sweating that. First, third, and second on FanDuel for 2,800 is a bargain. He's had a little bit of surge recently, up to 15 home runs, a 161 ISO, creating runs 2% better than average for the season. Still overall a down year. He's striking out more than he used to by a lot, basically up 10 points in strikeout rate. Walks are down a little bit. Hitting the ball a little bit harder, barreling it a little bit more, but I'd rather have DJ LeMahieu doing the old DJ LeMahieu stuff at the top of the lineup, winning batting titles, getting on base at a great clip ahead of these guys, all my power bats, all my run creators, all these guys down here. Aaron Judge is Aaron Judge. If you can afford him, you just stick him in your lineup. 31 home runs and 365 plate appearances. Would be 60 plus in a full season probably again at this rate. 355 ISO. Monster contact. Jason Dominguez, 16.7%. Barrels 61.1% hard hits in his 21 plate appearances. 3 home runs. First Yankee Stadium home run came last night. 476 ISO so far. Kid was a premium prospect on the way up. Highly regarded through the system. And he's fully delivered so far. 21 plate appearances. We take it for what it's worth, but he's very fairly priced for the power on DK, hitting third in the Yankees lineup. There is a lot of upside in that DK price. 3,600 on FanDuel is aggressively high, putting him $600 more than Giancarlo Stanton against the lefty. I question that, but obviously the kid's he's here and he's here to stay. He's not going back down at this rate. So excellent option there. Gleyber Torres having a great year, 45-33, 24 home runs, 13 steals, 122 WRC plus. Gleyber's a really good second base option. Hitting cleanup today, cheap, lowered his strikeouts from 22.6 to 14.2. I cannot hammer that point home enough. Very good triple slash. He's an excellent option. Very good, good mid-level contact. Let's put it that way. Stanton, premium contact. Plus contact from Stanton still. 22 home runs, 241 ISO, despite the down season overall. I mean, 22 home runs, he's well behind Judge's pace in a similar number of plate appearances, but he's still a premium power bat who still crushes the ball when he makes contact. Down a little bit overall in the hard hit rate and the barrel rate, but still, these are elite numbers. Volpe, very good for counting stats, 20 homers, 22 steals, but not consistent enough. Those numbers should just be higher. He should be getting on base more, but hopefully that's an improvement. Take a big step forward next year. It's got to, at worst, it leaves him a lot of room to grow into a star next year. But 92 WRC plus on the season. He's very cheap. He's got a great spot in the lineup. Higashioka in the lineup today. Excellent source of premium contact. Certainly not a downgrade from rookie Austin Wells. They're going to be sharing that job the rest of the year. Higgy, 10 home runs and 235 plate appearances this year. And again, premium contact. We're just home run hunting when we're going to Higgy. Joker, God damn it. The dog is tied up in the wires. Joker, come here. No. Okay. We're having a day, gang. Somebody confirm that you can hear me, please. The dog just pulled like half the wires out of the back of the computer. Can you guys hear me? Hey, guys. All right. B-Funk confirms he can hear me. Obi-Wan says, hi, Obi-Wan. Didn't really need that today. Dog lays in the same spot under the desk every single day. Today, he decided to get tangled up in all the wires and rip a bunch of shit off the desk. That's cool. Good job, buddy. All right. Everson Pereira at the bottom of the lineup. Oswald Peraza. Two kids that the Yankees expect to be future players probably going into next year. They are high-end prospects. They are very low priced. Haven't really delivered too much so far in the show. Peraza's gotten a lot more opportunities with 114 plate appearances. 4 stolen bases, only creating runs at a 48 WRC plus so far. Multi-position, very cheap, and was hitting quite a bit in AAA. Premium prospect for them coming up. Everson Pereira. Pereira. I can't say his name right. 2,300, 2,100. All I care about right now is the premium contact. 14.8% barrels, 63% hard hits is very, very good from the young player. The output hasn't been there at all. A .041 ISO. 2 steals is fine. Getting on base at a 222 clip, creating runs at a 17. Not great, but I do think there's upside there, and especially for the contact. First home run's coming at some point. Trey says give him a hug later. I always do. Anytime he gets in trouble, he always gets an apology and a hug and some petting behind the ear. Let's move on from this one. Yankees, where do they rank? Yankees are like dead in the middle. Detroit's at the bottom of the board, though. There's probably a little bit of upside for Detroit, too, though. Yankees bats, Erod. Tigers bats, Rodon, even though Rodon projects out above Erod. I just don't fully buy it for Rodon. I do think there's obviously pains with his back. A lot of stuff going on there. So he's got some issues. Apparently I changed that while I was I'm just a sativa and a bodega tuna fish after this show. You guys know me well. Unfortunately, I got to go do the NFL show after that, and that's coming up at 6 o'clock, by the way, for those who are just joining us. If you haven't been to the site today, go to the site. NFL Showdown projections for tonight, totally free. Free of charge. Got some interesting numbers, too. We're a little bit, I leave deviations when I get them from what the industry averages seem to be. So we've got a couple outliers. Very high projection for Patrick Mahomes going. Some interesting stuff going on in that board. We'll obviously trim it a little bit. We'll get some updates in. We've got a major wild card whether or not Travis Kelce plays. Mom, is Rodon 38% owned? Whew. Yeah. I hadn't checked ownership at all. So, yeah, given that ownership information, that is obviously an unappealing play. There's a ceiling there for sure. But if you're going down that road with so many other people on the slate, I don't know. That's questionable. This one, you only get one pitcher. Adam Wainwright is not viable at all. Not against the Atlanta Braves. Not giving up a 3.94% home run rate on 11.3% barrels with an 8.10 ERA, a 5.79 xFIP, and an 11.1% strikeout rate for the season. He's just washed. He's done. He's rounding out his form, or rounding out his career. Top 4 hitters on the Braves, all over the magic number. Eddie Rosario right there. Travis d'Arnaud in the lineup today. He's right there as well. 10 homers on the season for d'Arnaud, 192 ISO, 233 plate appearances. Makes premium contact for a backup catcher. One of my favorite backup catchers in the league. When he's in the lineup, it's a downgrade, but it's not a major downgrade. And you get him at a cheaper price. It's not as dramatic as it would be with most other catchers in the league when you go from Sean Murphy to Travis d'Arnaud. d'Arnaud, if he gave him the 433 and change plate appearances, he'd be probably high teens home runs. I won't give him 20, but high teens. If you gave him a full 400 and change plate appearances, like what Murphy's got. Michael Harris, Orlando Arcia, excellent options at the bottom of the lineup, 113 WRC plus and a 110 WRC plus respectively. Nicky Lopez is very cheap. You have Lopez and Ozzie Albies in the lineup tonight. Who's missing? Austin Riley's missing. So no Austin Riley today. So you're getting Nicky Lopez instead of Austin Riley. Obviously, that's a massive downgrade. That's where the other home run guy went. But we still got Marcell Ozuna hitting cleanup today, 4,800, 3,800. You're getting a discount cleanup hitter, basically, for the Atlanta Braves. Matt Olson, tremendous power hitter, 46 on the season, a 321 ISO. These balls are going to look like grapefruits coming into this team. It's going to be ugly for Adam Wainwright today. Ozzie Albies, excellent second base option, 29 home runs, 11 steals, 118 WRC plus, a 234 ISO for the season. Acuna, 239 ISO, creates runs 63% better than average, 32 homers, 63 steals. What's not to love? Top to bottom, 1 through 9, Atlanta Braves are very, very stackable. I expect they're going to be popular. I don't really care. Top of the board by home run upside, second overall by fantasy point projections to the Dodgers, but major upside. Cardinals side of things, Tommy Edman, Tyler O'Neill, Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado off the top are very, very playable. They're going up against Max Fried, though. Fried's very good at limiting launch angle, very good at limiting barrels, 2.05% home run rate on only 31.1% hard hits, 86 miles an hour of exit velo this season. Small sample of only 60 and 2/3 in 11 starts, but he was the same guy last year, pretty much the same guy the year before in full samples. He's a fairly elite pitcher when it comes to limiting runs, when it comes to inducing ground balls, keeping the ball in the yard. And he's got a little bit of strikeout upside. Last year, 23.2. Year before, 23.7. This year, bumped it a little bit. 25.8 so far. 11.5% swinging, down a little bit over last year. So swinging strikes in CSW look about the same. But he's finding a few additional strikeouts. Only walks 5.3%. 2.52 ERA and a 3.0 xFIP. Pretty awesome pitcher when he's on. Cards lineup is definitely good. In terms of they have a lot of good players. I know the output's been weird this season. Like, I always have to qualify this. I know they've disappointed us time and again for DFS purposes. Trey says, let me jump. I just caught Trey's question caught my eye. Can you play 5 through 9 straight? I know they talk J1 at 7 with 1 through 3, but with this Braves team is the exception to the rule. I would say this Braves team is certainly an exception to the rule. I don't necessarily follow that as a hard and fast rule. My focus hitters are typically from that group anyway, because that's where baseball teams have their best players by and large. And your outliers are going to be when there's a power hitter late and stuff like that for when you examine those DFS samples. I think it's an important data point, but I think it's also just kind of a reinforcer of a data point rather than something to fully adjust any process for or necessarily create groups or anything like that for. And most particularly with the Braves, yeah, I think you can go to that lineup. If you told me you had Rosario, Darno, Harris, Arcia, I mean, it's not great with Nicky in there. Their everyday version of the lineup is certainly better in those spots. So keep that in mind. But you get a very cheap option with flexible positioning on FanDuel with Nicky Lopez. And then you get all these guys are excellent talents. On a lot of other teams in baseball, these three guys could easily hit in the top 3. You do get limitations of plate appearances later in lineups, but a high-scoring team like the Braves generates additional plate appearances beyond what the average team gets anyway. So a lot of offsets there, a lot of trade-offs back and forth as you think your way through the data. Paul Goldschmidt's a star. Nolan Arenado's a star. Tyler O'Neill's a major source of power, 13.4% barrels, 45.6% hard hits on the season, a 190 ISO. He's up to 9 home runs, 5 stolen bases. Got us a cheap home run the other day at fairly low ownership, a 107 WRC plus on the season. I really like Tyler O'Neill. When he's in the lineup, he's very, very cheap, 35.28. Great spot in the lineup today, hitting second. Normally you get him down in this area. Against the lefty, Nolan Gorman typically drops. 4,300, 3,000 for Gorman, 27 home runs on the season, a 117 WRC plus. Gorman's output versus lefties, pretty good. 131 WRC plus on the season in only 77 plate appearances. 4 of his home runs, 29.9% strikeouts is aggressively high, but a 242 ISO, 11.7% walk rate, 258, 351, 500. So he can get himself on base. He can be an effective option. It's limited plate appearances. It would probably be uglier given all the strikeouts against lefties in a more complete sample, but not inept against left-handed pitching. That said, we're looking for home runs when we roster Nolan Gorman, particularly losing plate appearances to that point, down bottom of the lineup, hitting 7th today, going up against a pitcher who is excellent on the whole at limiting power. I don't love that spot. Normally, I'd be more into the Nolan Gorman spot as a sneaky option against a lefty. But that said, the price is definitely right. 4,300, 3,000. It's not like he's that limited in this spot. Andrew Neisner, one of the options that we like to go to as a sneaky backup catcher. He's got an equal number of home runs to Travis d'Arnaud on the other side in fewer plate appearances. He's got a 205 ISO, 9.6% barrels, 40.7% hard hits. He consistently delivers for us when we go to him in these sneaky little spots. 29-24, filling in for Wilson Contreras tonight. Mason Wynn hasn't done much in 58 plate appearances, a homer, a stolen base, sub Mendoza, and an 11 WRC plus. Top of the lineup, Tommy Edman, still sitting 98 WRC plus, 12 homers, 23 steals. We're looking at Tommy for some counting stats. We hope he gets on base, correlates with these guys. Jordan Walker, pretty good output as a rookie, still very cheap, 34.28. 15 homers, 6 stolen bases, a 122 WRC plus. That player should be a little bit more expensive in the outfield. Luken Baker, 2,100, 2,200. 50% hard hit rate in his 42 plate appearances, 1 home run, a little bit of power. Power track record through the minors, if I'm remembering correctly. Yeah, 33 homers in the minors and 380 plate appearances as a 26-year-old though in AAA this year. Last year, 21 homers as a 25-year-old. Year before, 26 homers in 391 plate appearances as a 24-year-old in AA. So again, and a guy who's arriving late probably for reasons, but does have the upside for a little bit of power against the lefty. But Max Fried is very, very good at limiting power. Cards, priority bats are probably those four guys, and then Gorman. Edman is very competitive for that next man in, obviously, because he sets the table for these guys. But he's not great this year at getting on base. 310 on base isn't ideal, but he puts the ball in play a ton. 15.8% strikeout rate. I do like Tommy Edman. He's cheap, 4,200, 2,900 multi-position on both sites. That's probably your first next man in after this core. Braves bats. Max Fried, Cards bats. In that order. Braves bats, Max Fried, Cards bats. Maybe either of these lineups in. Probably not. We're still a little out ahead of the... I know. Cubbies lineup is in. Thank you, Cubs. As a reminder, this slate does start at 6:40. As another reminder, the football show for tonight's showdown slate starts at 6 o'clock. That should tell you what I'm doing as far as building baseball lineups tonight. Diamondbacks, Ryan Nelson on the hill. 125 innings in 24 starts, 15.2% strikeout rate this year for the rookie. 5.7 ERA, 5.47, 5.25 xFIP. Not a whole lot better under the covers. 90.9 miles an hour of exit velo we know is targetable. 42.5% hard hits is very targetable. 11.2% barrels. 4.07% hard home runs. With a team that is elite at getting on base, has good power through the middle of the lineup, very good run creators up and down the lineup, some fairly low strikeout rates overall, a couple of high strikeout rate guys like Chris Morel, but Chris Morel is one of our star power bats on that team from the bottom of the lineup. Some decent walk rates for a lot of these guys. I really greatly prefer the Cubbies side of this one. Cubbies oddly don't project out well. Obviously, I didn't take time to correct some of these. They're just relatively lower projected than some of these other teams for some reason. But as I've talked about before, those projections, I got to figure out a better way to do those projection rankings, because honestly that doesn't work for me, that it's so close. It's within a point from the top spot or the second spot, third spot to toward the bottom. So it's not the right way to show that. I got to figure out a better way to do that. I do like the spot for the Cubbies against this pitcher. Tons and tons of contact available. They're not coming through like crazy in the home run model for reasons against Ryan Nelson. We don't have any odd statistics. We had 18.1 or 18 and a third innings, 2.90% home runs last year. It's not like that was spectacular. It's a very small sample. Much more significant sample for him this year. Maybe just needs a little back end tweak. There should be more power showing for the Cubs today. There should be better projection showing for the Cubs today. Tauchman, 3,800, 3,000, 7 home runs on the season, 6 stolen bases, still getting on at a 358 clip, 107 WRC+. He's been creating runs all season. He's not a premium major league option by any means, but he's got a great spot in a productive lineup, and he's a part of what they do. He just gets on base ahead of all these guys. Nico, still a little bit pricey, 56.35. It's gotten a little bit more reasonable. 9 homers, 36 steals, a 101 WRC+, only a 111 ISO, very weak contact, but definitely a speed option. 36 stolen bases is significant. When he gets on base, he's a decent source of stolen bases. 339 on base. He's one of those guys where that needs to be in like the 360s, 370s to justify these kind of prices. But he's productive enough overall in a baseball sense with that on base percentage. Ian Happ, excellent source of on base, good home run option, good stolen base option. 117 WRC+, hitting ahead of Cody Bellinger most of the season. 24 homers, 19 steals for Bellinger, a 144 WRC+. He's been awesome this season. First base and outfield for 63, 4,000 on FanDuel, same positioning. Dansby Swanson, a little bit of a down year, 19 homers, a 105 WRC+. Seiya Suzuki, 16 homers, 119 WRC+. He's pulled this season together a lot. These have come up a lot lately. Emmer Candelario, 4,400, 3,200, 21 homers, a 121 WRC+, 224 ISO. Was one of the best hitters in Washington while he was there and has been good since coming to the Cubs. A lot of power from both sides of the plate there. First base and third base on DK for 44. Third base only for 32 on FanDuel. John Gomes, 32-26, 9 home runs on the season, a 150 ISO. Makes okay contact, not very consistent, but a little bit of power behind the plate, 90 down to a 99 WRC plus. And then there's Morel, 4,828. See, this is why you don't like making those rules to completely exclude 9 hitters or, focus so much at the top of the lineup when you're building lineups, because you do want to let these guys into a fair share of lineups, especially from the 9 spot with a bat like Morel. You're just looking for the home run, and then if he happens to get on base and correlate back to the top of the lineup in some of his other plate appearances, bully, so much the better. 15% barrels for Morel. 50.2% hard hits, 20 home runs in 353 plate appearances, a 238 ISO, premium source of power for cheap pricing, multi-position on both sides. I like that option a lot. Aviatar Assad projects out into like the lower middle of the board overall. He was 9th ranked out of the 16 pitchers, or out of the 12 pitchers, rather, 6 games, fortunately. Arizona sitting 6th by fantasy point projections, 5th by value on both sides, only 10th by home run upside. Assad not awful for home run power, 2.59% home run rate, 2.69 ERA with a 4.38 xFIP, 19.3% strikeouts, and aggressive walk rate. Doesn't play well against this Diamondbacks team. Very good at limiting strikeouts, basically up and down the entire lineup. There's not a bad strikeout guy in this lineup. Pretty decent at drawing walks, pretty decent at hitting for power. I think there's a decent amount of upside at cheap pricing for these Diamondbacks. So just like mindset-wise, they look like a strong value option. They ranked in the middle of the board or the upper middle of the board by point per dollar value when we put numbers on it. But just what these guys might do against this pitcher when we take some additional factors into consideration. I do think there's some additional upside for the Diamondbacks. Corbin Carroll at 58.41. Price is down a couple bucks on DK. Consistent on FanDuel. 24 homers, 41 steals. He backslid for a couple of weeks. He's kind of stabilized around, this kind of a level. The power's been out. He's only hit a couple home runs recently, but still overall 242 ISO, a 137 WRC plus, a premium rookie. It doesn't really strike out much. Makes very good contact, steals bases, hitting ahead of the power core here. I like that option a lot. 51.34, you get a discount on Marte to pair with Carroll. Average the prices. 21 home runs for Marte at 206 ISO, 125 WRC plus. Doesn't strike out at all. 16.7% strikeouts, 10.5% walks. Very good source of contact. Tommy Pham, multi-category, 13 homers, 17 steals, and 388 plate appearances. 50.6% hard hit rate leads this team. 3,600, 2,800, hitting third for this team most days, ahead of Christian Walker. It's a dynamite spot for correlated scoring. He's capable of putting up numbers on his own. Too cheap in the outfield. 113 WRC plus for the season. Walker at 4,600 is too cheap on DraftKings. That's been a theme most of the season. FanDuel's got it about right at 36, probably still $200 low. 30 home runs, 8 steals, 131 WRC plus, a 251 ISO. Premium contact with 11.5% barrels, 19.1% strikeouts to go with that. I don't get what's not to like about Walker. Solid source of power, second highest, behind Carroll. Home run rating in today's model. Alec Thomas, Lourdes Gurriel Jr., Gabe Moreno, Jace Peterson, Geraldo Perdomo. Effective mix and match options at worst. Thomas has a little bit of pop, a little bit of speed, wildly inconsistent, 20% worse than average creating runs in 325 plate appearances. I greatly prefer Gurriel. Good bat on ball skills, 45.7% hard hits. He's very cheap for his talent. 23 home runs on the season, 219 ISO, 108 WRC plus. His prices are basically down because the triple slash is down. I'm just looking to him for power if he's doing this. I'm fine with taking him as a power option. It's just saying we've changed the nature of the player, but we're getting DFS output from him in when he goes deep. So I'm perfectly fine going to the option. Maybe you're getting higher highs and lower lows and less consistent middles. For DFS, I'm fine with that, especially when he's priced down dramatically. Moreno's got 7 homers, 4 steals, and 99 WRC plus, 311 plate appearances. Perfectly serviceable catcher for the money. Peterson is a mix-in, odd little power outbursts, stolen base output from time to time over the season, 77 WRC plus. He's a limited lefty option late in the lineup. Perdomo does get on at a very good clip, 369 on base over 423 plate appearances. He's a kid, roared to life at the beginning of the season after a dead year last year when he came up as a premium prospect. Now we're kind of stuck somewhere in the middle. But as long as he's getting on base and creating runs pretty consistently, I'm fine with that option for cheap. Multi-position eligible on FanDuel, wraps back around to the top. I don't mind Geraldo Perdomo. Better when he's hitting higher up in the lineup, but certainly an effective 9-hitter and effective wraparound play. Given how they rank on the board, I would have to go Arizona over the Cubs. But I kind of really like that spot for the Cubbies. I'm just thinking it through now that I'm not trying to put all this stuff together with in a hurry. Call it a tie. Bats on both sides, tied in the middle. Don't really need either one of these pitchers. I don't think there's much value even at pricing for either of these guys. Not a lot of upside in either one of these lineups. Kind of a danger spot. What is the run total on this one? It's like 8.5. Most of these are 8.5. 8.5. Obviously, a lot of that is slanted toward the Cubbies, though. So let's call it Cubbies. I'm going to go with my instincts. Cubbies a little bit over the Diamondbacks. Neither pitcher. Last game. We have lineups. All right. Guardians and the Angels. Griff Canning, 8,800, 9,200. Projects out fairly well for being Griff Canning. We've seen him have some pretty dominant starts this season. 26.8% strikeouts, only 6.4% walks, a 4.30 ERA with a much better xFIP underneath it at 3.68. Just some struggles with contact. In 104 and 2/3, he's given up a 4.35% home run rate, 91.1 miles an hour of exit velo. Exit velo. 42.7% hard hits, 9.7% barrels. There's danger here, but it's Cleveland on the other side. They've got Josh Naylor back in the lineup now. They've got Andres Jimenez over double digits finally for home run upside. They've got a Jose Ramirez lurking in that lineup, but he hasn't been great this season for him. They're a non-threatening, low strikeout kind of a bunch on the whole. I feel like every time I call them non-threatening, they have an outburst for runs, so be careful. But I think we can go to Griff Canning in this spot. He's correctly priced at 88.92. 92, probably a little high on FanDuel. The hope there would be that he keeps ownership a little bit low. Just to check consistency of late. In terms of the innings, anyway. 6 innings last time out, 7 innings to start before. Perfectly fine with that. 9 strikeouts against the Mets, 7 strikeouts against the Athletics. That was just recently. Yeah. No gaps. We're fine. He had a couple limited starts, 3 2/3, 3 1/3 in 2 starts back. Went about a week without pitching between a start against the Rays before that Mets start, but then went 7, struck out 9, gave up 1 earned, 5 hits. Came right back after that, went 6, struck out 7. Home runner allowed, 2 earned runs, 4 hits total against the Athletics. Forget which of the, I think it was one of the lefties got the home run, but I forget which. But I think there's clear upside here against this Guardians team. He's got to find a few strikeouts for us. That's the big thing. A lot of limited strikeout rates here. Steven Kwan off the top, 334 on base. You got to do better than that, Steve. 97 WRC plus. Kind of a lost season for Kwan, which is weird to say about a guy who scored 81 runs, stolen 18 bases. Like, he's been not completely inept, not completely unproductive, but this and this need to be higher. Last year he was at 373, created runs 24% better than average. Stole basically the same number of bases, hit for a lot more average, was getting on base way, way higher. Doesn't strike out like at all, 10.6% strikeout rate this year, up from 9.4. Last year walks are down from 9.7 to 8.9, still very strong numbers. Ramirez, 10.5% strikeouts and walks, matching rates on both sides of that. Similar to what he did last year. 270, 345, 471 this year. Down from 280, 355, 514. ISO's down from 235 to 201. Home runs are down from 29 to 21 so far. He might catch that. Probably not. Less than 100 plate appearance difference to hit 8 home runs. He could. He could hit 3 tonight. There's upside there for sure. He's their star. He's their superstar. I just feel like he's been better in years past. Maybe it's the lack of support around him that's cost him a little bit this season. Getting Josh Naylor back is obviously nice for that reason. 4,300, 3,000. Naylor's very, very cheap for a guy who's got 15 home runs and 401 plate appearances. Leads the team with a 305, 344, 493 triple slash. Leads the team with a 125 WRC plus on the season. He's hitting ahead of Cole Calhoun, who does have a little bit of power, but plays the same position on DK, which kind of sucks. Outfield on FanDuel for Calhoun. Totally playable, $3,000 option there. 3 home runs on the season and 112 plate appearances, a 143 ISO. Creating runs 2% better than average. He's been a good source of left-handed power in the past against a pitcher like Canning, who's giving up plenty of contact. I do see a reasonable trajectory toward a home run upside there. That's kind of like what the model's seeing. Not at the magic number, but a little bit better than halfway there. I think that's about right for Colt Calhoun. He's correctly priced, totally playable if you're going to Guardian stacks. Ramon Laureano, limited option, 8 home runs, 9 steals this season, 15% worse than average creating runs. I talked briefly about Jimenez, but he's 12 home runs, 25 steals, but 10% worse than average creating runs. He's another kid. They were expecting 2020 for sure from him, and with upside for more. And he's just not really delivered at all this season. One of their big disappointments. He's pulled it together so the numbers and the counting stats in particular look a little bit better of late. But overall, it's a down season. 3,900, 2,800 for the talent at second base is definitely a good price. Gabe Arias, interesting power bat late in the lineup. 32.8% strikeouts, does support some additional strikeout upside for Canning on the other side. So does 28.4 from Laureano, which is good because they're mixed in with all these mid-teen strikeout rates. Those are your strikeout targets, but Arias is a dangerous hitter. 9% barrels, 44.3% hard hits, 9 home runs in his 290 plate appearances, only a 149 ISO, only 84 WRC plus, but a decent source of bat to ball skills, decent source of some sneaky power, particularly for 2,100 with 3 position eligibility at first, third, and short on the FanDuel slate. There's value there. Bo Naylor, a little bit of power, 8 home runs and 176 behind the plate where you need catchers as value in that. Will Brennan, 85 WRC plus, a limited player overall, a couple counting stats, but not much meat on the bone there. Angels going up against Cal Quantrill. Cal has a 12.1% strikeout rate. The Angels have a 22.5% strikeout rate across this lineup, and there is no Shohei Ohtani in the projected lineup. Did they put him on the IL yesterday while I was at the U.S. Open? Somebody let me know. He's not in the projected. Either way, I don't think we're getting him. Obviously, they're treating him with kid gloves down the stretch now that they're out of the playoffs. Shanuel off the top, 3,400, 2,900. Very, very playable against all the contact that Quantrill allows. Over 70 plate appearances, 286, 429, 304. He's got a 17.1% walk rate and putting the ball in play like crazy with an 11.4% strikeout rate. Not much power at all so far. A .018 ISO might be one of the lowest I've ever seen. 0% barrels, 20.8% hard hits. But he was in college a few weeks ago. Got to give him time to grow. Right now, just demonstrating excellent hit tool ability and a very, very good acumen for getting on base and drawing walks. I think he's perfectly viable for that. It just sucks that he loses the upside of hitting ahead of Ohtani in this version of the lineup. 20 home runs for Drury. Nothing as a power bat. 47.8% hard hits, 10.9% barrels, 6.68 home run in the home run model today to sit second on the team behind Logan O'Hoppe, who is an interesting option at catcher, 3,300, 2,600. Another guy, just given that there's going to be so much contact allowed, not that Quantrill's been awful for home runs in his 73 innings this year, but, or last year for that matter, 2.73% home runs over a full sample last year. Not terrible for contact for Quantrill. Keeps the ball not down, but not crazy awful home run trajectory overall. Not a lot of hard hits, not a lot of exit velo. But I do think O'Hoppe, obviously one of your better options for a home run today against him. Drury, right there with him. That was where I started that point. First and second base for Drury. 3,100 is a bargain on FanDuel. 43 on DK, second base only. Totally playable there. 225 ISO, 112 WRC plus. Luis Rengifo up to 16 home runs. He's on a little bit of a hit streak as I understand it. Hadn't noticed that because I don't follow base hits on a daily basis, but good for him. Up to 264, 339, 444. I prefer the sneaky home run bat down here than I do to the guy who's getting a few base hits up here. But it is what it is. He's ahead of a couple power bats. Mike Moustakas from the left side, obviously a little bit of lefty power, only a 4.52 in the model. 12 home runs on the season, a 158 ISO, 85 WRC plus. Limited overall output, but it's kind of nice to see a guy like Moose, who's been a part of our lives for a while now, kind of come back to life at least a little bit, getting an opportunity in the heart of this Angels lineup these days. Logan O'Hoppe talked about Mickey Moniak from the left side, 4,000, 2,800, up to 13 homers, 280, 307, 490. Really surged out of the gate over his first 100 plate appearances and then is kind of normalized statistically, but does have good lefty power, 12.4% barrels. Oddly, only a 35.6% hard hit rate to go with that. But definitely when he squares the ball up, he delivers. He drives the ball very effectively in the right circumstances. Against a guy like Quantrill, when the ball is just going to be kind of sitting out there to hit, I like that spot. 6.04 in the home run model, not bad. 4.35 in the home run model for Randall Grichuk, who we've seen hit home runs for years. He's got 13 and 392 plate appearances. A decent but precipitous drop in his triple slash. 267 is down from, he was over 300 when he was with Colorado, and it's only been like a month. So he's down hard in the triple slash since coming to LA, but still a sneaky bat late in the lineup. Enough contact there, a viable option for cheap pricing in the outfield. Eduardo Escobar, kind of the same thing. Viable option for very, very cheap pricing, knowing that he's a switch hitter with a little bit of pop formerly in that bat. This year, only 6 homers and a 144 ISO and 254. Limited for premium contact this year, but just last year, 9.4% barrels, 37.4% hard hits. Gave us 20 home runs and 542. Year before that, 28 home runs and 599. There's a little life left in that bat against a pitcher like this. Kyron Paris, mix and match option, 18 plate appearances, hasn't done anything with him. 442, guys. We're coming right back in an hour and 18 minutes to do a football show. I gotta get my act together. I promise we'll be more scheduled, more consistent delivery of football content next week when things are a little bit more and I've actually gotten all this stuff together. It was the getting it together that really killed me and the procrastinating on it more accurately. Chuck Deuces points out that Renifo hit a home run last night. That's awesome. I missed that. He is a cheap, good source of power. Oh, shit. I just noticed that. There was a pitching change for LA, apparently. Davis Daniel. Thank you, guys. Appreciate that. So we will be extended by a few minutes. That's what happens when I don't put my eye on chat. Is the kid gonna actually pitch, though? Why did I have Griff Canning? He was in there early. Implies that he's likely to start. Limited to 6 rehab starts. I'm just directly reading a CBS fantasy note, courtesy to them, or props to them, whatever you want to say. It looks like he was really good in his 6 rehab starts, but only made 6 rehab starts in the development league and then single A. Was supposed to start for Salt Lake today. So what happened to Canning? I'm trying to make sure it's not like an opener follower situation. All right. I don't have Davis Daniel loaded up in the model because I wasn't aware of that change. Apologies for that, guys. Normally I'm more on top of these things. Let's take a look at him real quick. 26 years old. He was pitching in AAA. All right, so 21 appearances in AAA last year, 102 and a third, a 4.49 ERA and a 5.83 xFIP with a 19.4% strikeout rate at AAA, 1.23 home runs per 9 at AAA. That's not ideal. This year, across those development league starts, obviously was very, very sharp. But we're talking about a 26-year-old pitching against development league options or low A. So I don't really credit anything that happened there. That's just, seeing that he got some innings. In those 6 starts, 25 and a third total innings. I could pull up the minor league game log if I Google it real quick. Game logs. MILB.com has game-by-game game logs for the minor leagues, by the way. That's where we are right now. 2 innings, 3 innings, 4 innings, 5 innings, 6 innings, 5 and a third innings in those starts. So he's been pitching deep enough. But again, pretty weak competition there when he's making those starts. When he's breezing through hitters and striking out a lot of guys, it's kind of easier to book those innings. Pretty limited option, I would call this, if he's even on the slate. He's a $4,000 DK dart. I guess you could play him on DK. But I kind of lean more toward the side of the kid that had the very limited strikeout numbers and the bad xFIP and the bad ERA at AAA for a basically complete season last year. I don't really see the upside. The Guardians suck, but he doesn't really strike that many hitters out if we're taking the advanced levels of the minors into account. Pretty limited even for the $4,000, but you're obviously buying stuff with that $4,000 price. Keep an eye on what the innings are supposed to look like. If there's any word about the innings pitch that this kid's supposed to get. No, wait, I don't want to do that. That's going to be obviously a big factor. Let me see if they've got them updated across town so I can get a pitch count from them. Davis Daniel, yeah, they got a full pitch count on him. I really don't love it. Given what he did last year in the minors, major league debut, has been limited by injuries and only made a couple rehab starts this season, it just seems like they needed a guy. They needed an arm rather than that there's a ton of upside here. I think you can get a little bit of upside out of those Guardians, a little bit more, given the idea that there should be some contact available now. Assuming he is that lower strikeout rate guy. He was giving up home runs that was a 1.2 something home run per 9 in AAA last year with a bad xFIP. I can get behind some upside for the Guardians. Keep an eye on who's in the lineup, obviously. Jose Ramirez, Josh Naylor are my top 2 priorities, followed probably by Andres Jimenez and then Gabriel Arias. You can flip-flop Arias in Jimenez, though, especially because they fill, you put a middle infielder in your lineup. It's one second baseman, one's a shortstop. But they fill similar-ish kind of positions. So I do think there's potential there. And that does take a usable pitcher off the board in Griff Canning. So let's get over here. Let's look at I'll do the home run board real quick. Matty Olson, top of the home run board. Basically all the Braves. And then the rest of the world. Judgy does sneak up to second overall because he's Aaron Judge. Jake Berger, third overall. Austin Riley not playing. And then Braves, Cal Raleigh, Jose Ramirez. And that's against Canning, so that probably goes up a little bit. Julio. Travis d'Arnaud, even as a backup catcher, right there. Mike Ford was the home run pick of the day. It's kind of a lark. You know, he was there. He had a big number. Yeah, Chuck, we talked about Rodon earlier, and I'll talk about it again. Given that fact that you just mentioned, that he's projected for very high ownership around the industry, it's because he's the highest ceiling guy by far that's at that kind of a price. Going up against a weak Tigers lineup, a weak but improved Tigers lineup, and improved against lefties Tigers lineup. I don't love it. I don't trust him right now. I cannot get it. I don't know if you're here when I was talking about that game, but I cannot get it to go lower than this in the model without unfairly weighing in. It just kind of is what it is based on his track record. If he gets 6 innings, I think he's in that neighborhood of projections, unless it goes completely pear-shaped again and he gives up 5-6 runs, which he had been giving up till the last 3 starts. So I think he's a little bit better. I think he's probably a little bit improved. I don't know if they gave him some drugs and took the pain away in his back or whatever the case is the last couple of times out. But he's been a little bit better in limited opportunities, in 2 low strikeout matchups. So while I don't have faith, really, I kind of believe in the projection, if that makes sense, right? Like, it's a believable projection with low faith that he actually gets there. I hope that makes sense. Let me know if that doesn't make sense. I'll try and think of a different way to say it. I think you guys are all sharp. You guys are smarter than I am, so you guys know what I'm saying. Luis Castillo, top of the board, especially on a slate that got a little bit shorter with no Griff Canning in it. We're really looking at these options for me. Taking Griff Canning off the board, you do have that $4,000 Davis Daniels option on DK. I wouldn't roll him on FanDuel. I sincerely doubt that he gets 6 innings of quality. Third time through the lineup, they're going to go. The team like Cleveland will burn them the third time through the lineup if they leave them in, just with their contact alone. So I don't like the upside there on FanDuel where you need the quality start. At 4,000 on DK as an SP2, you can mix in that Davis Daniels guy. Braxton Garrett is rough against the Dodgers. He projects out okay, but limited ceiling, I think, for Braxton Garrett, and a pretty aggressive basement for Braxton Garrett today. Zach Littell, definitely some strikeout opportunity. I kind of prefer this option to this option, if I'm being perfectly honest. There's not a lot of daylight between these 2 projections. Littell's going up against a very high strikeout Mariners group. He's obviously got a lot of home runs coming back against him. Seattle ranked out fairly well. But as a value dart, why not save 1,000 more and go to Zach Littell against a bad Mariners club than Carlos Rodon, who's been so bad this year and who's going to have the entire field on him. I think that creates a little bit of justification for throwing a few Tiger stacks at Carlos Rodon on a full slate too. If you're building 150 lineups, you should have some Tigers in them with that much weight of ownership on a struggling pitcher. Ryan Pepio, upside. Very talented young pitcher, hasn't been around all that much, but definitely some strikeout acumen, some strikeout upside, and going up against the Marlins lineup with no Jorge Soler. Eduardo Rodriguez, Yanks are decent against lefties. There's obviously a lot of power in the Yankees lineup. They're improved with the kids. He's got one of the better ceilings, one of the better projections on the board. He's fairly priced. He's a little bit cheap maybe on DK for how good he's been overall this year and the normalization overall of his luck. So I like the Erod option. Arcatelza, that's an interesting question. I assume no Ohtani for the Angels, so I'll probably give it to the Guardians. Not that I really love the Guardians, but they've been frisky enough against bad pitching in spots and just all the contact skills against what I expect to be a low strikeout pitcher. Again, quick glance at the numbers. I wasn't prepared to talk about that kid. But on the surface, what I just saw doesn't really fill me with confidence in that kid outside of the $4,000 dart level on DK. So I would probably lean Guardians a little bit over the Angels, but probably just more draws it to about even. But I was more aggressively on the Angels side of that equation a minute ago. Quantrill, probably unplayable from the bottom. Waino, definitely unplayable from the very bottom. Ryan Nelson, I doubt you get there at those prices against the Cubbies in a start in Chicago. Just too much on base, too much power, too much quality in that Cubbies lineup. Same token for Javier Assad, going up against a limited strikeout option. He's okay. He's moderately playable on a short slate. I do think Assad should be in a few lineups, but not many. And it's probably a pretty low ceiling, high floor kind of a situation, or low ceiling, fair floor. I hope all that made sense, guys. This felt like a really clunky show, like the clunkiest show of the year. I wasn't expecting it really. I kind of thought the football show was going to be more clunky, but I'll have a more relaxed, casual approach to the football show, fortunately. And there's much more limited stuff to talk about for football. So it's just easier. But it's going to be a slog just remembering which columns are which as I go through the model. Hopefully everything fits on the screen. I haven't tested that yet. We're going to find out at 6 o'clock. I'm going to punch out, guys. I'm going to get some more updates in on the football side of things. We're going to see if we've got any news that affects any projections and get everything updated. If you haven't been to the site today, rotoscouts.com, there are free projections for tonight's NFL game for the showdown slate on DK, full DK projections with actual numbers on them, full FanDuel projections. DK projections include the bonuses. Patrick Mahomes in my projections is projected over 300 yards. I gave him the bonus. That's why he's so high on DK today. That said, it's not crazy far off what he averaged for DK points last year. We'll talk about it at 6 o'clock. Hope you guys come back and hang out with me for that one. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button if you've never done that so you know when these NFL shows are going to be popping up over the next few days. With that, guys, good luck out there on a baseball slate that I'm not playing. Somebody go win something tonight. I'll see you in about an hour.